Ableton Live 12 is right around the corner, and there's some extremely fun and powerful new devices that come included with it. One of my favorites by far is the new Roar device. Roar is an extremely powerful and versatile audio effect unit for distortion and saturation. I've had the absolute pleasure of playing with it the last couple months, and I'm going to explain to you some of the features and how you could possibly utilize this in your own workflow to get some very unique and incredible results. What makes Roar so unique and powerful is that it's a distortion and saturation unit, and it can be used in serial, parallel, or multi-band. In addition to this, it comes with a wide variety of envelopes and filters for automating everything. Coming from a bass music background, I absolutely love distorting and saturating sounds in creative ways, and this plugin is an absolute game changer. Let's get into it and talk about some of the new features and what we can do with this plugin. Okay, so we are here in Ableton 12, and we have Roar open, and our test subject for the day is going to be a basic operator womp. So relatively low coloration, pretty clean. And we're going to use Roar to destroy this. First, we're going to take a look at all the features, and then we're going to use it to make some creative sound design of our own. So the drive is pretty self-explanatory. That's going to be the input signal. If you need to boost the gain before running it into this unit, we can do that here. So we have this little tone knob here, and basically what this does is it's going to boost high or low frequencies depending on which way we turn it. So before we even start processing at all, we have this option to just completely blow out and boost our lows and highs, which I think is pretty cool. And this frequency selection option here is actually going to correspond with the low shelving filter. The first option we have here is single, so this would be your stereotypical single signal coming into the device and being processed. The next one we have is serials. So this allows us to process our signal in stages, so it's going to be processed by stage 1, and then it's going to move into stage 2. Parallel means this is actually going to split our signal into two different signals, and it's going to allow us to process them separately. Next, we have multiband, which is my personal favorite. I absolutely love multiband distortion and saturation. Historically, one of the only plugins I can think of that you could do this with would be Trash 2 by Isotope. There's also Saturn by FabFilter, but it's not quite the same. So to be able to see this in a native Ableton device is very exciting. Basically, the way it works is we can process our frequency spectrums entirely separate of each other. Now we have 3 entirely different types of saturation going on throughout our frequency spectrum. As if that wasn't enough, they also give us a mid-side option, so we can process the mid or the side of the stereo image completely differently. So if we want to come over here and maybe just saturate the side of our signal, or just the middle. The last option we have is feedback, which actually gives us a feedback loop. And these options up here will change depending on which type of routing we have selected. And then it gives us a number of different ways to saturate and distort. We have everything from a digital clip to a tube preamp style, to a trifold, and one thing I really enjoy is that after every single one, they give us a filter. So we can change this from low pass to high pass. We can even run a comb filter through it. Moving on to the next module, we actually have a feedback section. So we can select different ways we want to introduce feedback through the device. Time, we can do synced or dotted. triplet, or note. This little button down here will actually invert the phase of the feedback signal. And this one will actually silence the feedback once the signal is done playing, so once we're done hitting the MIDI note or the audio is done coming through. And then at the end they give us a compressor, so after we completely ruin our sound or saturate it, we can now compress it a little bit, which is pretty cool. This little compressor over here is actually a master bus compressor, which is pretty cool that they give us to this in this situation, because with all the saturation and noise we're introducing, it's nice that we can get a little bit of compression to kind of glue it all together and kind of tame the loudness a little bit. One thing I like about here that I noticed is this gauge right here that's going to show us when the compressor is kicking on will actually go from faint to more brightly lit depending on how much compression is being introduced. A nice little touch on Ableton's part. So this is actually a high pass filter sidechain. So what this is doing is it's taming the high pass a little bit so we don't have to reduce the lows on output. Then we have a master output and we have a dry wet. And last but not least, similar to a lot of the new devices in Ableton 12, if we hit this tab here, we now have this absolutely stunning, amazing view to work with that just gives us so many options for mapping, so many options for automating. So now that we've kind of gone through all the features, let's go ahead and initialize this and see what we can do to our bass sound here. All right, so now that we've gone over some of the basic functions of Roar and kind of how to use it and the controls, let's start having some fun and do some sound design stuff. So initially what drew me to this plugin was the fact that we can parallel, because oftentimes with bass sounds you typically want to leave the sub frequencies or the low frequencies kind of clean and kind of saturate the upper tones or the middle tones. So let's go ahead and play around with multiband and see how we can kind of mangle this womp and get some body out of it. Maybe we'll try fractal. If we open this up, we can actually map this amount to the envelope follower. Maybe we'll do it. Let's use the feedback mode to introduce a little bit more body to this. Okay, now let's try something different and maybe introduce some glitchy kind of tones and play with the feedback a little bit. So for this, we're going to use kind of some basic parallel distortion settings, and we're going to play with the feedback to kind of try to bring out some glitchiness and some randomness to it. Now once we crank the amount on this feedback, with the resampling filter moving randomly in the feedback, it's going to create some really unique, like glitchy textures. So super cool, and really this is just the tip of the iceberg with Roar. The possibilities are endless with all these different saturation and types of modulation they give you. Hopefully this was a good taste of kind of what's to come and what you can accomplish with this. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I can't wait to see what all of you come up with when it comes to Roar.